Hello, I'm James Ingram for AutoControls-dot-org, TrainProgramming.com, and Midwest Traction Hub. This video is a quick start guide for programming the NCE Programmable Model Train Controller for controlling your O-gauge trains. The written sheets you see in these exercises are in a documentation website at autocontrols.wordpress.com/V816, and that's a small letter V. I'd encourage anyone making these mini panel videos to make this same quick start video yourself, as it would probably help to have the same thing explained different ways by different people. This is video number 816, Quick Start Part 0.1. There are 5 new Quick Start videos numbered 0.1 through 0.5 that were made in January 2023, and they supplement the original 5 Getting Started videos that were made back in 2016. In this part 0.1, we'll set up the mini panel and show how we can blink the red LED using the reset button. This programmable O-gauge model train controller, known as the NCE mini panel, is manufactured by the NCE Corporation, located in Rochester, New York. In this part 0.1, we'll try to give you some hints about hooking up this programmable train controller and creating a simple 3-line blink the red LED routine. First thing we got to do is hook the mini panel up to the system. On the left, we've got an old Powerhouse Pro hooked up to a mini panel via this white cord. We want to hook it up using the 2 ports on the left, which are the operational ports. That's essentially the cab bus. And going over to the power cab, we come out of the right side of the power control panel over to the to one of the 2 cab bus ports on the power cab. Now what we'll do next is we'll zoom in a little closer so we can look at these in more detail. On the Powerhouse Pro, it's a simple matter coming out the cab bus port into the operational port on the mini panel. Then there's a spare port here for hooking in another cab or daisy chaining down to something else. On the power cab, we got to be more careful. What we need to do is make sure the power cab is plugged into the left side of this plate. This is actually what they call the PCP, short for power control panel, which is unique to the power cab. But the power cab needs to hook in on the left side, and then the right side needs to go to the mini panel, and the mini panel, or whatever it is, needs to be set at address 3. In this case, the mini panel comes defaulted to address 3, so we're in good shape. What I've done, I've gotten myself into trouble with this enough times. I made a label. I've got this label I made here. It says power cab must be in left socket, right socket must be cab 03, because you put the power cab in the wrong socket by mistake, and I've done this, then the mini panel won't respond. It would actually be nice if NCE included a label, something to this effect, but then that would probably raise the cost if they had to do it. But I've got this label in PDF form on my documentation page, which you're welcome to print out and use if you think it's useful. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the mini panel that's hooked up to the power cab and move it over here next to the mini panel hooked up to the Powerhouse Pro so we can zoom in a little closer. And you need to make sure the programming jumper is removed. These come with what they call, I think, a programming jumper that's over 2 pins, and nothing works if you don't remove those and put them. What I do is, people have told me you take it off and put it on one jumper, one pin, so you don't lose it. Here's these 2 mini panels again up closer. This is the an older one on the left, I guess you call it the original mini panel, has a bigger LED, that red thing right there, and that'll blink in a minute when we activate it. The programming jumper on both of them is right about here. And then if I use the newer one, and the newer ones, they are functionally they're the same as far as I know. The instruction manual's the same. And the big difference we can see is the LED is now a surface mount LED. It's in the same place approximately, but it's not, doesn't stick up. But the programming jumper is in the same place. And again, to run these things, we need to take the programming jumper off. I failed to mention that in the original video 816, and it's tripped me up, and I think it's tripped up a couple other people the same way, that you put your programs in and try to test it and nothing happens, and you got to take that program jumper off. The way I work, that program jumper stays off permanently. When I say off, I mean it's on one pin. If you do need to go into programming mode, and there's cases where you use it, there's actually, not sure how well it shows, but there's 2 pins here, and it's sitting on one pin. You pull it up and put it down on both pins. But for what we're doing, we're just going to leave them on one pin, as you see. Now what I've done here is plugged another Pro cab, in this case into the operations port over here on the Powerhouse Pro, and in the case of the Power cab, we plugged a Pro cab into the programming port of this mini panel. So this way you can use this one to program this thing, and this one provides the power, and you can manually run trains. Likewise over here, you use this one connected to the programming port to do the programming. This one connected to the operations port you can use to do manually run trains. This one you can do with just the one cab if you don't have 2 cabs. But over here, if you try to do it with just the power cab without the second power cab, it's doable, but it's kind of cumbersome, and that's where you do need to have the programming jumper on part of the time. They have this drawing on the NCE website that says using mini panel with just a power cab, and you move the power cab from the left side of the power control panel and put it over here into the programming jack on the mini panel. Then you put the programming jumper on both pins and you can program it. But then to run it, to test it, you have to take this out of here, I believe, and put it back here, and you got to take that programming jumper off. So you're continually putting that programming jumper on and off, and I believe moving this back and forth, which is kind of cumbersome, but it can be done. But I'm not going to talk about that anymore. But that's where you do need to maybe have the programming jumper on both pins. And the other place you use the programming jumper, if you've got something in the last set of inputs, input 31, which is automatic power up upon start, automatic execution upon power up, I should say, which I never use. You do need sometimes to use the programming jumper to get it into programming mode. But for what we're doing in this video 816 and how I normally use it, we're always going to leave that programming jumper on just one pin so it's not active. Now we'll see if we can demonstrate blinking the reset button. These mini panels have about 30 terminals roughly. They start with terminal 1 here through 8, and there's 3 grounds, and then terminals 9 and going all the way around up to terminal 30. Those are really inputs 1 through 30, and you can connect any kind of a passive thing like a push button or a read switch to any or all 30 of those inputs. But then the next to the last one is the reset button, and the last one over here is a 4th ground terminal. And what happens is when you touch the reset, you connect the reset terminal to ground, it'll send the reset command, and that also causes the LED to blink. So we'll demonstrate that now with this wire. Normally this would be a push button, but we should be able to touch this wire that's connected to the reset terminal to ground, and you can see we get a blink, a red blink out of that thing when we touch it to the ground. That's one way we can say we're communicating with this. This is the newer one with the surface mount. Going over to the older one, we should get the same effect. We can touch here and get that LED to blink. Incidentally, you can maybe see the newer panels, they're slightly, it's not the same board. The boards are different, and the numbers, they've got them a lot brighter on the newer ones. It's easier to read the numbers. Compare these numbers to the original panel, with the numbers are a lot dimmer. And one thing I should have mentioned earlier that I didn't, this is the power cab here. When you connect the power cab, make sure you use the flat cable. You can see I've got a combination of flat cables and curly cables here. And for the most part, you can use either of them, except the power cab needs to have a flat cable to connect it to the power control panel, because the two outside wires, I believe, have the track power. If you forget and use a curly cable, and I've done that, your power cab lights up and everything, but you get no power to the track, and you're sitting there wondering, why isn't my power cab putting power on the track? And this problem is I used the curly cable. So make sure you always use the flat cable.